To start round one of IWGM Asian Parliament 2025, I call upon Prime Minister to start the debate. Here.
You good? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, give me a second to set up my timer. Um, Favorite pronouns she, her, and for POI preferences, you can just open your microphone and say POI. And beforehand, if anything, if any of my speech is offensive to any of you guys, please yeah. Please be aware that this is just for the sake of the speech. And yeah, I hope all's well that ends well. So I will start my speech in three, two, one. Panels, ladies and gentlemen, we think that these days there are a lot of unhealthy and toxic examples of representation in the media, and that's why we're proud to propose that we oppose the trope of the green tea beach in media. Now, before jumping into my arguments explaining on why we should definitely oppose this trope, I will first give some framing for contextualization. Now, first framing is that I would like to define what we mean by opposing the popularity. We are not saying that we are going to erase the trope in the media because we know that it has already existed anyway, and we don't want to be labeled as radicals or extremists because we are trying to limit the creativity of writers that still want to write such character anyways, or media or companies that will still produce such trope because we can't anyway. But what we mean by opposing means that we are going to raise awareness about how toxic this trope could be in the long term by doing two things. First, encouraging and trying to spotlight other tropes that could be a better representation of women, both the innocent and intelligent kind. For example, the characters from Little Women, where they are all innocent and they are all kind, but they are actually intelligent, and that doesn't always mean that they come up with schemes and they are actually evil, or they have bad plans and etc. B, we are going to ignore the characters in the show and highlighting the main plot instead of highlighting the traits of the show, because we know that we can't actually bend the show. So what we do is we are going to encourage and raise awareness in the media that there are more interesting things in the show rather than highlighting the characterization of those characters. Second framing is that the popularity of the green tea beach trope in the media is a part of agenda setting and commercialization of a bad personality trait that a woman could have. Writers that write such characters are working under one label to be paid, and they have to somehow make their show interesting by making a very stereotypical character for women. And sadly, society continues to buy this trope because they keep consuming such media when it's actually harmful for the long term. To analysis one, this trope is very popular because two possible reasons. One is that women have been oppressed throughout their lives, so once they see a character that is seemingly savage, such as Regina George, they will enjoy these kind of characters and shows. Or second is the other way around, is because people know that these characters are antagonists, so they will actually witness how these characters will receive their karmas, and it gives them satisfaction. And B, since this trope is already popular, companies will continue to provide such media because they know people will continue to consume it no matter what happens, and this will be continuously be a cycle, and the popularity will not stop. Third framing is that this trope is very negatively biased towards women who are actually innocent, feminine, and soft because it portrays that innocence, femininity, and softness as a facade and a weakness. Take one example such as Rashta in Remarried Empress, who is framed as an antagonist and the third person to the main character's relationship, but is covered in a way that, oh, she's pretending to be nice and kind. Or Regina George, that is very satirical and acts friendly in the front, but is actually very mean. And even though some writers maybe want to give more awareness about women who actually do have such personality in real life, it doesn't compare to the harm they could bring. So if opposition team really wants to win, they have to prove why it is beneficial, why is it okay for this trope to still be popular in the media. Now, into my first argument, children are teenagers, and teenagers are very easily exposed to the media, and they could also easily be exposed to those drama series or manhwas, and there is no denying or stopping that. It is their right to consume such media, yes, but that doesn't mean that they are recommended for them to do so. And what is the likelihood of this? We can't expect parents to supervise or stop their children from consuming such media, because in general, parents will then also stop their children from doing so, right? Because the shows with these characters aren't even brutality shows that are explicit or something. They will probably think that, oh, it's just another drama or rom-com show. So their children, or at least teenagers, will still watch and consume such media. And what is the urgency of this then? Children and teenagers could easily follow or pick up those traits because they think, oh, this character is cool. Oh, or, oh, I can actually actually try to cover my bad intentions by just portraying myself as innocent and kind. And it is hard for them as well to distinguish between me or savage, or it will be hard for them to distinguish in real life where what is the women that are actually innocent and kind, or what is such women that are actually pulling up with such schemes. And this is why it's very harmful for the long term, because it could impact children, it could impact teenagers, not only women, but also the men, but also other children and teenagers in general, because this media is open for everyone, right? And the second argument is that this narrative is also very harmful for women from all sides. Why? The likelihood of this is that it could put women against each other and create an even more biased view from the society in general, including conservatives or even the patriarchal society. How is it possible? Let's say these characters at the green tea beach are the women, right? And of course, many of the people who consume such media are also women, and it makes them hate other women just because the portrayal that, oh, this woman is an antagonist, and they put an innocent and kind facade, and that is why this could actually make women against each other even in real life, because in real life women will be very worried about other women who are seemingly innocent and kind. And what about the conservative or patriarchal society? Of course, it will create a more biased view, which is already biased in the first place. And they could think that, oh, women are actually this and that. Even in the very first place, they already like to frame women and blame women on everything. And now they see a very popular trope in the media where women is portrayed as innocent and kind, but they are actually bad, they're actually evil, or they come up with such schemes, and etc., etc. And of course, even though it is not something that is directly or physically seen, but for the long term, for society values on how society view women and how women act towards each other itself, it is a very long term toxic and harmful psychological impact. And that is why it is urgent for us to actually try to repress the popularity of this trope. So what will happen in our side of the house? We will encourage more portrayals of women in the media, but not this kind of trope. The people with most power here are the artists, filmmakers, etc., and their words will inherently shape popular and media instantly or gradually. And we know we can't stop that. The reason why this trope is popular is also because it's a trend, and artists can easily bandwagon to what's currently trending without actually putting much thought into impacts or the sake of storytelling. And that is why, like what I have said in my framing, what we are going to do is that, okay, we are going to encourage and raise awareness about how there are better portrayals of women, and how in real life, antagonist doesn't always have to be related to innocence and kindness and intelligence. And this will also all be elaborated by my next speaker, but that's why we are very proud to propose. Thank you.
I thank Prime Minister for that fine speech. To continue with the debate, I call upon Leader of Opposition here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. Wait, let me set up my timer first.
Okay. Don't forget your preference.
I'm gonna start. Oh yeah. My POI preference, just unmute yourself, and a trigger warning if I may offend or talk about some sensitive issues, just for debating purposes. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. First, let's talk about a couple of responses to the propositions of the House. We have two responses according to this. The first one is they said that there will be more toxic representations in the media if this trope is trending, or the rising of popularity still increases. However, if we look at the counterfactual, when this trend doesn't exist, there is still many toxic representations in media, including portrayal of women who is too overly kind, for example, or portrayal of women who is too overly evil, for example. That kind of portrayal will still be exist and even more thriving in your side of the house. And how can you explain that kind of portrayal is actually not toxic in your side of the house. So basically, props wants to encourage a view where women is actually viewed as an unrealistic kind, unrealistic angel that has been portrayed for decades. That they basically wants women to actually be put in a box where they will always actually be kind at the end of the day. The second response is how it will also causes exposures to teenagers or kids. But let's see, this harm also exists in your side of the house because in your side, whenever there is women who are evil, for example, like the evil queen, etc., who are evil since birth, for example, it is the portrayal still exists, and children are still exposed to that kind of portrayals anyway. So how can you manage the harm that exists in your side of the house then? Let's move on into our framing. How then this trend exists and how then the popularity increase over time? Because people are fed up by the mainstream plot of like bad paced villain or like evil queens or evil women or like overly kind women. And this kind of portrayal will actually cause women to be able to actually follow a certain kind of standard that they need to follow, because people think that what exists in media is actually affecting people into thinking the perspective that women should actually be kind and they should not be actually scheming, or they should not be intelligently cunning, for example. That is why, moving on to my first framing, why is this portrayal okay at the end of the day? Aside from a fact that it is a form of freedom expression in writing a character that is complex, we need to remember that the characteristics of women in real life or the character itself is complex. They can seem perfectly, they can be cunning, but they can also be kind, they can also be innocent. This is the kind of portrayal that actually exists and portrays women in society, women in real life, because women in real life has also a complex personality as a human, right? Compared to the mainstream trope, for example, like the evil queen versus the Snow White, the other women will actually always be hated. The evil one will actually always be hated compared to Snow White, who is actually so innocent and have no guilt and have no sin or whatever. People will actually keep portraying women as pure evil or pure kind when they do not fit into that box of purely evil or kind. They will be judged by the society at the end of the day, and it is extremely unrealistic for you to push on that idea. And if you say that you do not deny that this trope will actually still exist in your house, but we believe that by simply existing, this trope will not be able to change the perspective on what the society has already implemented on women. We need this trope to be actually popular and trending to be able to make an impact on how people will think women should be women should be portrayed in real life. Moving on my second framing then. How then? Why then this portrayal is needed in media versus women's interest, right? We need to talk about women's interest first. How women wants to be viewed as a human who can feel emotions, who can feel emotions, who can feel like complexity of anger, of sadness, of evilness, of kindness. Are in women interests are not supposed to be expected of to be kind 24/7 or like to be viewed as evil 24/7, because each one of these women is actually different, right? You and I are different. Maybe your cousin is a little bit more kinder or etc. Because of that, it gives a realistic views on how women is actually wanted to be portrayed, rather than pressuring women into having to be, oh, like, yeah, you have to be kind all the time because that's how the society wants you to look at the end of the day. And this is why the portrayal is needed in media. And how then this portrayal, something is trending in media, it actually mirrors and influences people's thoughts and perspective. It will also spark discussions in the media about it. We believe that by the popularity of this trope, people will actually see that women is also a human being with complex emotions who don't just actually fit into the mainstream box that people have implemented into women all for decades and centuries. For example, let's see, the classic portrayal of women in Snow White existed since the 18th century, for example. That has been like more than 3 centuries ago. And if we keep this trend going, then the portrayal of women will actually be stuck in that, right? if you want women to actually be viewed as who they are, if you want women to actually feel represented in media, you have to allow this kind of trope to be actually popular in the status quo and in the media, because then it will also increase the awareness of people that this kind of women exist. And we think that it is not a bad thing if people know that women is sometimes is evil and sometimes is kind, because that is realistic. Meanwhile, if you view women as just kind, for example, you do not expect them to actually be able to act out of that box, which at the end of the day will harms you as well. Because then when you have that certain kind of view, when that people does not fulfill your expectations, it will harms you in terms of you will feel disappointed and betrayed at the end of the day, and that woman itself will also feel betrayed at the end of the day. Compared to when you have this kind of realistic expectations, then you will always be able to like judge people objectively instead of having to judge them to actually fit into your imaginations of women, that actually they are only kind at the end of the day. That is why we on up really encourages this trend of this trope popularity. For example, like the representations of these women to actually still exist and thrive in media, because it will actually give exposures and mirrors the reality of women that has been not represented well in the media over time throughout to oppose.
Thank you for that fine speech. To continue with the debate, I call upon Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Hello. Am I audible right now?
You're audible, tapi audionya agak kecil.
Agak kecil ya. Bentar. Mungkin laptopnya agak kurang dekat. Maaf ya Kak. Bentar.
Ya, monggo.
Let me set my timer for myself. So, without any further ado, am I audible like enough right now?
Yes, better.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. First thing, we want to emphasize that we think the opposition sides of the House have failed to interpret and engage in our framing, and we are going to explain how all their arguments are not exclusive. First, we have the counterfactual that there are still many other toxic portrayals. Their counterfactual doesn't make sense because we have explained that this trope exists, yes, and we're not going to erase it. If they say there are already toxic portrayals, well, doesn't that mean you're adding only like another one? The reality is this trope in itself in a box. In the film industry, when stories are often dramatized, characters can easily be separated into those boxes. But why this personality in itself, it's dangerous because it's appeal to how the male gaze often portrays women in general manifested in the current media. The general public now see women must be adaptive to anything. They like seeing women being kind to everyone, but also being sassy or like able to be intelligently sly, and then also cunning enough to be able to slither away from actual responsibility. This counts as fetishization too, and doesn't appeal to the women interest that they claim. Are women interested in also fit into this one box of being someone who can do it all? Second of all, they bring up characters such as the evil queen, when in the very first place, the trope specifies our characters that put an innocent and kind fake act. It is called the green tea bitch trope in the very first place because they're not portrayed evil from the beginning. Even the example they give is not matched with the trope, so we think that in our side we can give better examples, and we have explained of how are we going to prevail in the end. Third, the realistic expectation in movies are different to the ones portrayed in real life. Movies characters are, again, as we've repeated before, dramatized. So the behavior cannot actually represent women in real life. We believe that no women want to portray as cunning or like sly and being mean to others just because they're indeed like trying to seem to be kind and innocent. Moving on my arguments. First, two wrongs don't make one right. Media has 5 theories, and 2 of them are agenda setting and cultivation theory, which means that media generally
has their own setting to inject their idea to the public, to seek attraction for being unique and having their own signature that cannot be found on others. We can deny that all these times in movies, right? From the end of 18th centuries, for the example, women have always been the object of innocence, gentleness, nurturing nature, and all. Women have always been the fragile sculpture, the knight trying to always save from the dramatic war. When in real life, women or simply everyone should not choose to be completely dependent on others' behalf. Just like how the opposition trying to portray, we are living in a patriarchal society that is so right. That's when this concept of movies exactly and content slowly becoming mainstream and realistic and realistically against the real world. People starting to try to find new nuance to the stage. Women in generally patriarchal world should be able to find their own sanctuary and stand by for themselves. Sure. And this is how the new concept of savage girls are built by media. So they stand with public agenda and can be actually supported by wider audience, which in this case, women, right, that have always been oppressed and weakened in previous scenario of movies. But is this even a better idea to put a savage girl as the top trope? Judges, I think we have to understand that we live in an undeniably normative world. We already have thousands of years living in an agreement of the black and white of something. We know that throwing shades at people, it's a bad thing, right? Or to be manipulative is not a good thing. And even, well, yes, it's still happening realistically, but doesn't mean doing such acts deserve to be normalized. It's still a bad thing, and what we have to do and already do in the progress is to work on this issue. You cannot calm down fire by pouring another gasoline. So if there's already bad things happen, such as having two sides faces as human and being hypocrite, what we have to do is try to train ourselves to be more sincere, to mean what we do, to care and working all together with the sake of human being to create peace. I think it's not a wise idea to give up on our ideal world in the sake of one specific behalf, making this a trend and forgetting that media can be accepted by anyone abruptly. Although opposition can say that filters exist on media, but it doesn't going to work well when parties with greater influence like movies watched by millions of people continue to plant such understanding. Second of all, it put women against each other. In the concept, it's always the kind-looking ones where they act just all nice and admiring for others while being actually scheming and even more hating on each other characters without no reason in discreet. And we don't even know why the media always most commonly, just like context side gave us example of Regina George, Rashta, etc., it's always the women character. It's like women are the main objectification of such act and such concept by the media. Then again, this is because such idea already being hyped up, just like how I have explained, and media trying to serve one new nuance which progressively, slowly normalized one mindset to the targeted audience, which we believe mostly here women. With the presence of these women that have such attitudes, give women hopes of power. But we believe that this is a twist on the meaning of self-protection by romanticizing insecurities by projecting it to others. It's different when being self-aware and fear of danger that might threat us with by hating and having intense beef with each other. With like it is different, completely different between being self-aware and firm with just being simply mean. And in this case, mostly by women characters, they ended up also by hating and having intense beef with each other because they're characterized with significant different personalities, which seem to scream women with specific diverse attitudes should be put against each other by the plot of who's better than who. Even if we play in the opposition scheme where they bring women with attitudes are exist too in real life and we want to appreciate their existence, remember that film always try to find an attractive plots that attract people to watch their plots and movies, right? And those films most commonly always ended up with like those sly character always ended up with pathetic ending. For the example, Regina George ended up being hit by a truck. That means like when you actually have the personality of a sly person, even though we want to try to engage with their ideal of appreciating these behaviors, like these girls that has such attitudes, they always ended up pathetically. They always ended up with in such tragedy, like tragic ending. That means that those movies don't even in line with the agenda of we try to appreciate women. They just simply making women as an attractive objectification. That's our preference of world, or like we actually oppose this green tea bitch. It's like it's still better because we try to accept women how they are without trying to put one specific behavior better than the others, because women are different, sure, and they are safer in our side of the house because we most likely to try to give a woman safer statutory to be in. That's why we still propose.
I thank Deputy Prime Minister for that fine speech. Now to continue with the debate, I call upon Deputy Leader of OP. Here.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, confirming. Are you speaking atau lagi set up timer and stuff?
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna speak. Yeah, but I'm gonna use this Mary's device because mine is not working. So wait, yeah, let me just set up my speaker, not my timer. Okay, I'm gonna start my speech with 3, 2, 1.
Sorry, sebelumnya, I think someone just dropped. Ada yang kena skip tadi. Sebentar. Fajar disconnected ya?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wait for Fajar to...
I'm Fajar, I'm sorry. My name is Fajar.
Oh, okay.
So I'm using this Mary's laptop. Okay?
Oh, okay. Nanti minta tolong rename aja. Jadi so I don't get confused because I have to track.
Oh, yeah, so sure. Let me just rename right now, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry for interrupting.
So my name is Fajar. I don't have specific pronoun. So I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I believe that the portrayal of women that is wanted by the government is very two-dimensional. They want kind girls to be kind, they want bad girls to be bad. But that is inherently harmful because that is not how women experiences work in the society, right? That is not how you grow up to be a woman. You're not always kind, you're not always a bad girl. Sometimes you are being a bad, you want to be a bad girl. Sometimes you want to be bitchy, but at the same time, that society still wants you to be nice, right? How are this going to be represented in the society? You're going to see it in the media because the believe that media should represent what it is happening in real life. Sure, there is going to be a level of dramatization because that is how media works, right? We believe that sometimes kind girls are being too kind. They keep accepting whatever daggers are being thrown at them. We believe that is also part of an exaggeration. And even sometimes bad girls are always doing bad. Sometimes they do bad things that are just out of mind. Because this is also part of the exaggeration that is also wanted by the government. Sometimes innocent people are too innocent that they just take everything, right? Because that's not. Hello?
Yes?
Am I clear? Because I think someone just said it.
Oh, okay. For me, it's still audible enough. Tapi kalau misalnya from Team F, Team Prop malahan nggak jelas, do you have another mic atau gimana ya?
Maybe I don't speak loud enough. How about now?
Okay.
How about now, government team?
Affirmative, prop. Segitu cukup?
Okay, berarti kurang dekat. Alright, I'm gonna continue ya.
Dari awal aja, I guess, karena artinya
boleh.
They haven't heard anything. Sorry ya, thank you.
Yes. No worries. Okay. I'm going to start my speech again in 3, 2, 1. We believe that the portrayal of women that is wanted by the government is very two-dimensional, right? They want kind girls to be kind. They want nice girls to be nice. They want bad girls to be bad. But we believe that is not always what is happening in the society. We think that sometimes girls also want to be bitchy. Sometimes girls also have some sort of hatefulness inside them, right? But they are forced by the society to always look nice, out of facade that they should act kind, for example. But that is not how they really feel, for example, from the inside. This is part of women's experiences that we want to portray in the media, right? Because we believe that media should represent what women in
in real life, and this is also part of being a woman, being a hateful bitch, being a sour bitch. But at the same time, this is not always about them being a bad girl, because of course in media there is some sort of exaggeration, right? Because sometimes nice girls and innocent girls are being too innocent that they are just take every daggers that being thrown at them. We see this in most soap opera in Indonesia, for example. We see that bad girls are always being bad in out of mind being bad, right? Because this is also part of the exaggeration that is happening in the media right now. But we believe that in some sort of way, this is not what we should be debating about. What we should be debating about is how women could relate to the experiences that these characters have gone through. That's why they relate this character. That's why they like this character. That's why they see them themselves being represented in the media. That is why these characters are being so popular, for example, right? This is why Regina George is being more popular than Katie Heron, because a lot of girls see themselves that, oh, I do have a little bit of Regina George in me, right? Because that is what is happening in real life right now about agenda setting from the government team. They said that this is meant to attract viewers, that women are being hypocrite and speculative. I think this is by the media and the society, right? Because they always want to portray women in a certain way. For example, in the past, the women are always being framed as the damsel in distress, as someone who needs help, for example. But right now, with the rise of feminism, this is also being portrayed in the media, that now women are not always there to take help, to wait for the man to save them, that they can also fight for themselves. They can also be planning, they can also be scheming, they can also be someone that is nice in front of everyone, but at the same time being stabbing in the back, because this is what being a woman in real life is, right? But then they also bring up the idea on how children will pick up these tropes, for example. I think that children seeing this kind of tropes will happen in any way. This cannot be stopped. Either they get it from the media, or they can see this kind of person in real life, right? However, this is not exactly how they're going to grow up to be, because children grow up based on their own experiences. This is not fully from what they watch. That even if these children, for example, just happen to grow up to be the characters that they watch from, I think that this means that there is some sort of relatability from the characters to the viewers' experience, including being Grindy Bitch. Further from this in my argument, and they also bring up how this is biased towards innocent women. This is how the portrayal to society that women are going to be speculative and innocent. We believe that women are three-dimensional, right? Because they can grow up from their experience. They're not always that innocent. We believe that most women experiences are unique and different from one another. This is what I'm going to bring up in my argument. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how women's experiences are entirely different from one another, and this is how media should portray them. We think that women experiences can also include being calculative, being smart, and women have different backgrounds and environments that shape them into the person that they are now. Sometimes family does them wrong. Sometimes they are built in family, for example. Sometimes they are brought into a circle that are toxic. We think that this is resulted to them having some kind of anger, sometimes of them being bitchy, sometimes of them being calculative, for example. We think that this is at the same time slightly to being liked by everyone. This is the burden that have been put upon women. That's why being kind of everyone is always required. We think that this kind of portrayal that they are always kind, always having to put on a facade, is nullifying the real past experiences that women have gone through, which is not how real life women work, right? We think that we grow up in some sort of situations that make us being a bad, being some sort of a bitch, right? Being some sort of having a tropes that is not being generally liked by everyone. We think this is how media should portray them as real life characters, right? We think that media should provide a backgrounds. I think sometimes in media they provide backgrounds into how they become the way they are. We think that at the end of the day, this portrayal in the society always have the characteristics in I think that this portrayal of Green Tea Beach in the movie always have some certain characteristics, such as being strong, such as they know what they want, they know what they deserve, not being not always gonna be silent when during they're being stepped up, getting revenge to those who have done them wrong. We think that these are the backgrounds that shape them. This is also how people are going to relate to these people, for example, because now women want to fight back, right? They're not always being done wrong anymore, and they're not going to be silent about it. And this is why these women
are so popular, and this is how people like them. People relate to their experiences because in the past, women were taught to always take it nicely. But we think that in the present day, we are not being taught to always take things kindly, right? We are not taught to always be silent. But when people do you wrong, that you should fight back. But at the same time, we also have this kind of pressure from the society to always put on a facade. And we think that this is how women are adapting, right? This is how they are adapting to their own interest to always fight back, but at the same time, they should put on a cover, always look nice. But people relate to this experience because this is what they are going through in real life, right? This is how they feel represented in some capacity by this portrayal of women in this media, right? That they can also be secretly hateful while trying to look nice in public. And we think that this is much more better as opposed to the portrayal that is preferred by the government, because only being kind, only being good, or only being a villain is two-dimensional and putting women in a box. And this is always what the society wants women to become, right? As opposed to what government want, for example, if they want like innocent women to always being nice. I think that at the end of the day, society will expect this from women, right? And we're just going back to women being kind enough, just stay silent, taking everything in, taking every judge in, taking everything, people doing them wrong, and just taking it being innocent and being nicely. But at the same time, if they also want women to be bad, they also are showing to the society that women don't have a sense of backgrounds that makes them built that way. I think that in most green tea beach characters tropes in movies, it is not always them being bitchy. There is always an explanation, a background as to how they become the way they are, right? This is what we believe media should portray. This is how we believe that women are three-dimensional characters and they deserve to be portrayed as well that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the speech. Please be mindful. Your speech was 7 minutes and 40 seconds. I did give time signal, so the last 20 seconds
Sorry.
will not be counted. No problem. Be mindful of the timernya aja. Yeah. To continue with the debate, now I call upon Prop Whip here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Loud and clear, okay?
Yep.
So I have no pronoun preference, so you can call me by anything. My POI preference is just unmute your mic. And yeah, that's all. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right, so what upside of the house needs to remember is that we never oppose the whole trope existing, but oppose the fact that it's popular enough for it to be sustainable for the long time and why it becomes harmful then. I think that my first speaker has given enough framing and even gave a mechanism on how we will do this opposing act. And my second speaker has also elaborated more on why this is toxic for the long term. So we think that they haven't been able to fulfill their burden and exclusiveness on why it is better to comply with their side of the house. Moving on to my rebuttals. My first rebuttal, by saying that being a green tea bitch isn't always about being bad girls or sassy girls. Well, so are the other characters that always have scenes where they act different than their usual appearances, because that's the essence of characterizations, which is dynamic. So their argument doesn't define on the value of the character, because even though it doesn't always be like that, but generally the characters are strongly all commercializing in that way. So second rebuttal, sure, films mimic reality, but remember, the executions are most commonly will always be dramatized for the sake of entertainment and audience satisfaction. So maybe sure there are sassy girls in real life, but in the movies they are completely extra, and there's no point to still justify their mean acts. Finally, I will break down the clashes that we have so far. First clash, the actual portrayal of this trope in the media. 2 points. First point, its usage and why is it so popular in the media in the first place. Gov claims that it is so because writers want to portray actual women in real life. However, again, we don't want to half stance our case. We still believe that the trope in general has a moral background with a horrible portrayal in the media, especially after the popularization. To contextualize what I mean, let's take the characters from the example like Rashta and Regina. Those characters might be seen as complex characters, but they are still mostly portrayed as villains or as the annoying characters. So even if they say that these characters can appeal to real life struggles, the reality is people will still see them more as characters instead of actual women who or women who relate to these characters as so the people who relate to these characters will see them as villainous as well. It would be different if we see this trope being used for like a moral character, a main character, or fan favorite character. But in the status quo, realistically, the narrative is women with personalities like this are still seen as something that is attractive, but at the same time villainous or straying from the norm. This strengthens our claim about fetishization. Moving on to my second point, how people are likely to, my second clash about how people are likely, about the second point, how people are more likely to feel or mirror this in their real life. As my previous speaker have said, children, teenagers, and the conservative media can use this trope in many ways, idealizing them, taking it without context, and even weaponizing it so that women will always be pit against each other. Why is this harmful? The spread of stereotypes and eventually discrimination can run rampant in popular culture or social media. Context is easily taken away for the sake of popularity or just to fit the standard. This is something that we've contextualized since the beginning, but they haven't engaged at all. To the second clash about the role of our most vulnerable actors here, the viewers, which consists of men, children, and especially women. All of them count because all types of people will have their own interpretation and opinion of this trope, and it can go out of control when the film industry or social media put more gasoline into the flame. Again, the popularity will change how people view women right now and set up what the modern women should look like. In the status quo, women are expected to be more adaptable than before, to be emotional for their peers, to fiercely defend the ones that they care, but also prioritizing their own careers and goals. That's a lot of things going on. And to elaborate on my second speaker, this narrative is currently weaponized by the current society to put more burden on women, without actually them noticing it. They want to put this facade of this being like a girl power movement, even though there are actually more expectations and burden placed on them. How do I get to this conclusion, ladies and gentlemen? One, the popularity itself already enforces how this trope is favorable or dreamy for any woman to be. Media says that they want to portray real life characters, but the more it is popularized, the more it will push this narrative to every woman in real life. Women right now will still be oppressed because more burden and expectations will be placed on them. So OP hasn't answered that side of the burden from them. Finally, move on to my weighing. Let's weigh our world in which we oppose this trope on the popular media versus a world where they do the opposite. Gov claims that their best case scenario far outweigh ours by saying that they are preparing viewers to the reality of how women exist, the individuality of women, and the precautions of being manipulated. However, after my previous speakers break down their narrative, it is wobbly at best, especially when compared to our arguments, narrative, and scenarios. 2 points of analysis for my weighing. First analysis, Goff claims that they provide a better representation for the media by appealing to the majority of audience or to the ideal meaning of women in the status quo. However, again, this popularity has been carried too far and will only appeal for a short term of time because it is a trend, as we've said before. In their best case scenario, yes, they will portray the so-called modern woman. However, we can also answer those concerns by spotlighting more trope and opposing the only spotlight on the green bitch trope. Women right now just have to be adaptable, and they have to realistically follow the standards that OP has proposed. However, women still have diverse personalities, diverse needs, and diverse importances. So we can't just say it's okay. Yes, what is your POI?
You said that you want an ideal portrayal of women. Define your ideal portrayal of women.
Our ideal portrayal of women has been explained since our first speaker, in which women, yes, have many personalities, but it is not inherently always portrayed correctly in the current zeitgeist or in the current film industry. Like, okay, let's talk about the ideal portrayalization of green bitch trope right now, because this one is dangerous because, again, people are pushing it as an expectation for all women. They want all women to be smart. They want all women to fit the current standards on what's going on. That is the danger of idealization. So finally, to my second weighing, we have explained that we're going to oppose this trope by encouraging society, especially women, that there are many more characters that they could focus on rather than highlighting such green tea bitch characters. We want society to ignore those characters and rather just focus on the main plot, because we know that continuing to make this trope popular will be harmful in the long long term. We know women, especially the younger ones, are easily exposed to such media, and we don't want them to idealize such badass characters or even be aware of women with innocent and kindness. Elaborating on my first speaker that has mentioned how this could also lead to more biased views towards women from conservatives and patriarchal society, we believe opposition didn't make better step-by-step or mechanism on how standing behind the green tea bitch trope will more likely be more beneficial and safe under their set of the house, which is why we really propose this motion.
Thank you for the speech. Same thing. Last 10 seconds will not be counted because the speech exceeded 7:20. To close the substantive part of the debate, I call upon opposition whip. Here. Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Before we start the debate, am I clear enough? Is my voice clear enough for you guys to listen?
For me, it's clear. For Team Prop, is it clear enough?
Is it clear enough for the Gofton?
Hello, Team Gov. Wait, Team Affirmative, Team Prop, are you there?
Yes, we are here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Kedengeran nggak tadi Dasmeri ngomong?
Kedengeran tapi agak. Can you like talk closer to the mic again? So sorry.
Sure. Am I audible right now? Is it clear enough for you guys?
This is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I will be starting my speech. I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that from our understanding that the propositions here on the house itself is actually how they will clash their own idea by their own definitions of ideal and portrayal in the media itself. They agree with us on how that the women itself has the complex personality, has complex emotional spectrum, which is actually very massive in real life, right? We believe that what they offer to us, especially when it comes to the fear that they show on how it's actually going to weaponize the women at the end of the day, on how it's actually going to push the narrative to women in real life to adopt this kind of personality, to adopt this kind of mindset of to actually against another women in real life is actually not true. It's actually only them throwing this unnecessary fear to the society itself. We believe under opposition side of the house, under our proposal, it's only going to give this kind of popularity of the trope itself is only going to give like the check and balance to this status quo right now on how for as the media as the platform itself by actually having this kind of trope, this kind of green tea rich personality, massive adoption to the people is only going to give the understanding to have a better and bigger discourse in the society to actually understand that as a women itself, this movie, every portrayal that they have, it's actually a real representation of women in real life. That women itself is not only like boxing to have such kind of very kind, very nurturing, very positive personality. They also can have another emotions. They can also have another angle. They whenever they actually want to do something, it's okay for them to actually have this kind of anger, to actually want to do this kind of revenge. It's actually valid. Especially when it comes to every single portrayal that comes with narrative history explanations, or it comes with its own, background explanation storytelling that tells the audience about why every single character, especially when it comes to this kind of trope character, what makes them come to this kind of realization, what makes them come to this kind of portrayal, right? It actually always, attract the audience itself to engage to this kind of narrative, to engage to this kind of discourse about why such kind of scenario could happen to every type of women, right? It's also actually going to broaden up the spectrum of discussions where every single layer of society, not only the women itself, not only like the men, but also, let's say, the underage that the proposition team of the house scared to be influenced with, right? Because we believe that for even for the underage itself, they still have they still have the ability, the access to actually rationalize why certain figures, why certain characters also able to come with this kind of scenario. And we believe that why is actually still give another like a check and balance, because in our worst case scenario, even if at the end of the day it will influence the kids, it will influence the underage, it will influence the women to actually have this kind of narrative imposed to them. But at the end of the day, media also always show to them that how every bad character always comes with a very bad ending, always comes with a very bad karma at the end of the day. It will also give like another realization to them to rationalize every single bad decisions they will do to the other party or the house itself. And also we believe that the second clash in this debate is actually talking about whether or not that women itself at the end of the day go against each other in a especially in a particular society. We believe okay, from what we see under the government proposals itself, they stated that it's actually only going to make the women opposing each other by the popularity itself. It's only going to create toxic narrative, blah blah blah. But we believe on how that those kind of things is not going to be happen, right? Because because under their side of the house, by opposing this kind of popularity, limiting this kind of popularity, at the end of the day, it's only going to limit the relevancy, the relatability of the people itself. It's only going to impose the notion to the people, to the society, especially to the women, that once you feel relatable or feel relatable to the certain character, it's only going it's going to be, you're going to be framed as a very toxic people. And it's at the end of the day, it will oppose the liberations of the women itself. Under opposition side of the house, what's going to happen is that how as women itself, especially in the patriarchal society, it's only going to spark productive discourse. Why that so? Because at the end of the day, when the massive adoption of every single character happening, it will actually open some many kinds of public discourse, and also people are going to talk about it, people are going to discuss about the relevancy, why they comes to such kind of conclusion, what makes them like that. And it why at the end it's important, because at the end of the day it's going to create better understanding and less judgmental society, especially when it comes to men itself. When the government side of the house believes that men itself will only going to victimize the women as a certain kinds of like, oh, women are toxic if they act a certain way. But under our side of the house, when the public discourse are happening, it's only going to open more understanding, more better understanding, and less judgmental society. And also it's going to highlight more objective expectation to women, especially to more evil character that is portrayed. that is represented in media, it's actually going to give more objective expectation that it's okay, it's valid to have women acting certain way, and also it's going to embrace more natural complex emotions that women can have. So we are not going to limit women in any certain way, and we believe that by supporting these kinds of by we mean that by not opposing this kind of popularity, it's only going to enhance the productivity of the progress of women that we have in our society. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the speech. Now that closes the substantive part of the debate. To continue, I call upon negative reply.
Halo.
Audible but very small.
Halo, kedengeran nggak?
Much better.
Oke. Oke, ntar ya. Oke, setting up my timer. Alright. Okay, we believe that women are two-dimensionals and they grow up from their own experiences. And even if they like these certain characters, we believe that it is not something that is inherently bad, but it's just simply that their experiences somehow match with how the characters' experiences are being portrayed in the movie as well. On portrayal, we think that government never give any like specific preference of portrayal of how they want their women to be portrayed in the media, right? They told us that. Okay, so yeah, they said that government always give various portrayal of women in their Wait, yeah, I think the AI is on AI recording. Guys, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, sebelum itu, is
what
it
is this, Beb? Siri?
ada auto caption on atau something?
Wait, yeah, Siri say. Halo?
Halo.
Oke. Sorry, tadi Sirinya itu hidup jadi dia kayak bilangin I agree gitu-gitu. Oke,
Ya
aku
Allah.
lanjut aja ya.
Oke.
Yeah.
Alright. Bentar, I stopped the clock tadi, so you're at 40 seconds now ya.
At 40 seconds ya, okay. I'm going to just continue ya. They believe that women should have various portrayals, but they never tell us specifically like what type of portrayal do they deserve women to be portrayed in this media, right? We think that at the same time, this kind of variety that they support women to have in the media, they also opposes the portrayal of real women, as we explained in our case, right? We believe that women could grow up with several experiences that make them being hateful and being bitchy, but at the same time they also have the expectations by the society to look nice in front of everyone. We believe that this is the experiences that women are already having in the society, right? We believe that with the portrayal that they prefer, they want like women being kind because they want women to look supportive from one another. They also want women to look innocent. We believe that this is two-dimensional and how societies are expecting women to look like, and this is how the society just keep pressuring women to be polite, to take it as it is, right? We think that we come up with unique experience. We think that we believe that women come up with unique experiences blended by the women's expectation from the society, which is making this kind of trope in the green tea beach exactly relatable to each woman, and that is why they are so popular. On impact, we believe that government believe that there is a portrayal of them there is a portrayal of this green tea beach which just sends bad message in a bad way to the society and also children. They believe that this will influence children and the society to adopt the tropes. We believe that each woman and children has unique experiences which push them into the way they are when they grow up. If you at the end of the day relate to this character, we believe that it means that your experiences are actually meeting with the character somehow, right? We believe that this is not what makes them grow up to be the way they are. We believe that they have their own environment, their own family, and their own dynamic that also make them the way they are. We think that in the very very worst case of scenario, right? Mary also have told you this, that if the film at the end of the day does influence them, we think that there is some type of narrative in the movie that always supports that when this scheming and evilness and wickedness go too far, it always comes at a price, right? Because at the end of the day, they will get something bad happening to them when they become too evil, when they become too scheming, their scheming go too far. For example, this is also going to influence how the children, how the society are going to view this piece of media, this piece of film that are being presented to them, right? But at the very best, we believe that this is what women need to see. Women need to see women standing up to their own adversary, to when people do them wrong, they want revenge, they want stay silent and just take it as it is. They stand up, they plan their revenge. They don't want to be silenced, even if they are pushed by the society to look nice in front. There is also a sense of them that wants to fight back. We think that this relates to society. This is why these characters are being relatable. A lot of people like it. That's why we proudly oppose. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Now I call upon Prop Reply to close the entire debate. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, give me a second to set up my timer. Okay. If there is any problem with the audio, please just unmute yourself and tell me if I'm audible or not. All right, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels, we are very confident that we are going to win this debate because we can prove to you that in the end of the day, our side of the house offers more good than harm. We have also answered the concerns that are shared in both of our sides, and that all arguments of opposition side are not exclusive, and you don't have to buy them at all. Now, getting into my first questions. Now, always forgetting the problem of this motion is not the existence of the trope, and we have never make it a problem, but how popular it has become, which we have explained in the very first place. We have given them a specific mechanism on how we will oppose this, and we think that they haven't engaged enough with it. How will they provide a better benefit when they don't give us a better mechanism? That's why we already win in terms of framing and mechanism. Second is that they are trying to justify the fact that by letting this trope be popularized, they want to fit women in the current box. Our logic, step by step, has explained how this can happen through popularization and thus adopted by current social norms. This is what idealization is, as we have explained in the first speaker, so inherently they are contradicting against their own beliefs and thus have stancing. Judge, please discredit their claims on a more diverse narrative to women because it hasn't been fully answered nor explained well in a step-by-step way by opposition's house. Now, third clash is that opposition is oversimplifying the impact of these movies. They say that, oh, these movies are just for the sake of entertainment purpose only, and anyway, going to be filtered by society awareness. But in real life, judges, medias are being consumed freely by anyone, even children and teenagers, and realistically, it's within anyone's right to actually approve the concepts. If they said we never have actually explained what other portrayal that we want, we have mentioned what kind of other tropes we want to portray. And I even mentioned an example of how Little Women is a really good example. Right? Now, onto the comparison. First comparison is, in my first speech, I have given enough framing and explanation on why it's harmful, and it's elaborated further by my second speaker. What did they tell you, judges? They said that, oh, toxic and bad portrayals will exist anyway, and we have never denied that, but we have answered their concern, because if you support the popularity of this trope, isn't that the same by adding another toxic portrayal? And what is our response? We have explained that we want to achieve, what we want to achieve is suppressing the popularity of this trope, not erasing it, the specific character, and we can do that by raising awareness, highlighting other characters who can actually serve the complexity of women, the diversity, the dynamic personality that women have. This is also answering the argument about representation from real life, because just how much women out there have the traits like Rashta or Jung Soomin. We have also answered their other concern about how women wants to be portrayed, because no women want to be labeled as cunning just because they're innocent and cunning in general. Second comparison is that we found that opposition didn't make it better step-by-step mechanism on how standing behind the green tea beach trope will more likely be beneficial and safe under their side of the house. When in our house, we have already explained since the scratch on how this trope creates behaviors as objectification and selling point, and this is how media made it as a profitable point. And lastly but not least, how it might affect the innocent, such as children and girls that are actually preserve simplicity and pure hearted. For that being said, we provide safer sanctuary where we appreciate many personalities of women without skyrocketing one specific behavior above and put down the rest. If their concern is really to appreciate the unique behaviors of women, the complexity and how dynamic it is, why not making every kind of them equally popular? Why letting just one popular of a green tea bitch which have negative traits popular? Now, third clash is that of the engage with our point with the general scenes of those contents with green tea beach concept is a portrayal of putting women against each other, which we will assume that they agree to our scenarios offer anyway. And Op is trying to say that, oh, media's agenda is to attract people with certain concepts. It's just assumption and speculative, but they didn't explain further and why and how so. So we're just going to say that this one is invalid. And last comparison, the fourth comparison is that they are very contradictory to their own beliefs, saying that they want many personalities and expressions of women to be performed, but they also say that they can manifest all of it in one box. Yes, this one box allows women to have many faces and many goals, but we believe that this goal will be achieved well when many tropes shine together instead of only popularize this one narrative that doesn't allow all of those personalities or ambitions to be realized at the same time. And how do we weigh this debate is that we have answered our burdens, served better benefits, we have answered their concerns, and that's why we're proud to propose.
Thank you for the speech. That concludes the whole debate. Great job, everyone, for finishing round one. I'm gonna finish the recording now.